Hello, Stevie Coyle here from Mighty Fine Guitars with a Friday noontime webcast in Lafayette, California. This guitar, I want to show you just a couple of guitars today. Bevels are a thing that's coming in. They've been around actually, but not a ton. There are guitars that are built with bevels in this part of the lower bout, and they help a lot. You know, so many of us had enormous dreadnought guitars when we were in high school and college, and some of us are still playing them, but they're so big and they're so they sit up so high on the lap because the waist is part of the guitar is very sharp. It's very pokey, and it pokes into that little nerve bundle on the inside of your elbow there. It's very uncomfortable for trying to sit on the couch, as we all do, and watch Netflix while you're playing guitar. You know, which is actually a great way to learn guitar. If you're not paying total forebrain attention to what you're doing, things tend, especially when you're learning a piece, things tend to move into the frog brain, which is kind of where you really want things to happen. You want things to be playing. You want to be. I'm on. Oh my God, what do I say? Is my hair all right? Sorry about that, folks. I don't know what happened. Comcast. I blame them. I blame the schools. That's who I blame. Well, we were talking about this lovely guitar. Lovely guitars in general that are now built with bevels in the arm here to make them more comfortable to play, which is a primary consideration, especially as we get more venerable. So this guitar is by a fellow named Doerr, Tom Doerr, D-O-E-R-R, and I think you can find him at doerrguitars.com. You can check him out online. Wonderful, wonderful builder. It's really a pleasure sometimes to look inside and see. It's almost architectural what's going on in some of these guitars. Some fairly unusual top bracing happening here, but the main unusual feature here, and I don't think Tom is even doing this anymore, is this bevel that extends on this guitar all the way around. Of course, the useful part of the bevel rather, is up here, the part that fits on your arm as you play. And this guitar is made out of Ziricote. How's my angle there, Ducky? Is this okay for... Can you see the grain? Ziricote and bloodwood trim and redwood top. And it's got us kind of a cool, it's different. It's not a Martini sound. It's not that real snappity, lots of high end, lots of zing behind the notes. The high end is somewhat attenuated on this guitar, which is one of the characteristics of redwood sometimes. Wood is so hugely highly variable, you just never know what a piece is going to sound like until it gets all built up. But this, it's got this very interesting kind of high mid-range, but it doesn't have the high highs. It doesn't have that real zingy, snappy, sizzly, sibilant sound way up there above 4K, you know. But a very interesting sound, really kind of... to play minor chords and strange minor add 9 chords. It's got this kind of cool, spooky sort of sound to it, but lots of power when you need it. And you can sharpen it up. You get it up above a certain threshold, and the sharpness, not the sharps and flats sharpness, but the quickness of it does come out a bit more. Cool guitar, totally cool guitar, Tom Doerr. It's available here at Mighty Fine Guitars in Lafayette, California. Check out the neck here as well. Now that's just showing off. Actually, that's not showing off. When you see a multi-piece neck like this, it often signifies the fact that this neck is going to be really stable in terms of, there's constant string pressure pulling up on the neck like this. With a neck that's multi-pieces like this, it's sort of the same principle, even though much more elegant, of course. We wouldn't call it plywood, but there are multi-plies involved in the neck here, which means that you've got grain working against grain as the pieces are glued together. So you've got strength in torsionally significant ways. And it's just lovely. Goto tuners, of course, kind of standard nowadays on new guitars. Gotos are just wonderful. They feel great. And that's sometimes the missing piece on older guitars, is the guitar plays great and sounds great, but we've got those old doggone Grover tuners from the 70s that we all had to have, because they were kind of state-of-the-art at the time. But nowadays there are kind of better, more stable, and easier and more fun to use tuners than the old Grovers and Schallers we had 1,000 years ago. Well, now that, in this case, in the case of the Doerr guitar here, and in the case of Yamamoto guitars, let me show you one of these just for the heck of it. Maybe this one. Yeah. See, Tony's doing this thing as well. He's putting in bevels up here at the armrest so that your arm comes around and just kind of folds right in there. He's doing a wedge-shaped body as well. So the guitar is much thicker over here at your knee than it is up here under your arm where you play. So it's just leans right into you and wants to play. Great guitar. But the other guitar I wanted to show you in particular was by Rick Micheletti. And it's this one. And in this case, the bevel is structural. The guitar is built around the idea that this bevel that runs around, see how it's nice and soft, it's not a hard right angle, it's structural. That's what's holding the guitar together. The guitar is sort of floating inside this rigid rim technology, as Rick calls it. And it's kind of makes a whole different, it's a whole different beast. It's a whole different animal. Rick is doing all kinds of different stuff here. The way the top responds is really different and really wonderful. It's because the top is sort of floating inside of this rigid rim, and there's one on the back as well. And look at that. That's not ugly. Rick has some fantastic wood. In fact, this wood is called kiawe, and it's Hawaiian wood. And the top is Engelmann spruce. The bridge saddles. I had a Micheletti in here before, and I was particularly intrigued with this idea of individual bridge saddles. Instead of having a single piece going across, every string has its own little saddle, completely adjustable height-wise, and that can be a big benefit depending on how you play. Rick has joked a couple of times. I've spoken with him, and one time he said, all the other luthiers at the Healdsburg Guitar Show in particular would say, Rick, you're doing all the hard stuff. Why are you making everything difficult? This rosette that you're doing, that's really difficult to do. Why are you doing that? And this rigid rim stuff and individual saddles, that's all difficult. Some of the joinery is, nobody's going to see that. Why are you making that all fancy and pretty? And he says, he feels compelled to do it this way. This guitar has got latticed back bracing across the back as well. So it's a whole different animal, and it responds completely differently from other guitars that we have here in the shop. Very quick, much more high end, much more of that sibilant high end. It's a 12 fret as well, which is significant in that in a 12 fret guitar, you've got the bridge moves down away from the sound hole. It moves down to more in the middle of the lower bout. So the analogy I always use is tapping a drum. If you tapped a drum in the middle of the drum head, you'd get a completely different response than you would if you tapped at the edge of the drum. You'd get more boom, you'd get more articulation, you'd get more range. And that's kind of the idea of a 12 fret guitar. It doesn't just make the string shorter, because there's a difference between the frettedness, the 12 or 14 frettedness, or 13 in some cases. 12, 13, or 14 frets. Any of those sizes could be long scale or short scale. Long scale is something more than 25 inches. 25.4 is kind of the standard long scale, standard scale. Short scale, write this down, is 24.5 inches, almost an inch shorter. But there are guitars, and Walter Strauss was in yesterday playing guitars. His guitar, his Oneida, has nearly a 27-inch scale. It's really, really long. Now, what long scale does for you, and it's a choice for players as you get more farther down the road in your playing, you get to make these decisions about what you want to feel and hear in your playing. Walter needs a lot of stiffness in the string because he does a lot of alternate tunings, down tunings, where he's taking his strings down to D. In that case, you probably want something that's long scale, because at a given pitch, a long scale string, and the scale, of course, is the distance between the nut and the bridge saddle, the effective length of the string, not the full length of it, but the effective length of it. On a long scale guitar, you get more stiffness, and the notes, especially if you tune down, don't tend to sharp up so much as you move up the neck. So if you, like on a short scale guitar, which this is a short scale guitar, as you move up the neck, the tendency is for these notes to sharp out a bit and for the string to feel a bit flabby. Now, one man's flabby is another man's bluesy, because a short scale guitar is often what you want for blues if you're going to be pushing notes around, which is to say you're going to do. A short scale guitar will give you the option to do bends like that. Much easier to play. This is the difference between the triple O that Eric Clapton played and an OM. He played the triple O Martin from the 30s, and the triple O had short scales, so he was able to do more bendy stuff, more Clapton-esque stuff. Another player might prefer an OM, which has a slightly longer scale length and would let you do down tunings and would be stiffer. You'd be able to play it harder without it bottoming out on you and kind of crapping out and getting fretty. Can you hear those notes? I wonder if the mic is picking that up. Hearing those two notes kind of enveloping each other and picking up and dropping off convergent frequencies. It's got kind of a wah, 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 wah. It's almost making vowel sounds. It's almost making an ooh, wah sort of kind of waving around there. I love that. I love that. You get to play with those sounds on a guitar that will do it. Not all guitars do it. can turn that into something good. Ooh, that's fun. Remarkable guitar. Really, really, just for poppy sort of stuff like that, really great. And then you can get, with a guitar that is this responsive, that has this much voice to it, you can kind of pull back on the reins a little bit. Instead of playing full out all the time, you can really pull back and get lots of cool sensitivity going as well. A guitar that's got a ton of responsiveness, you can always pull back from. In fact, you're wise to, if you're performing, to pull back from playing full out all the time, because that gets tiresome. And what it means is if the guitar is really responsive is you can play it softly and still have lots of emotional palette available. I've got the little spec sheet here on this here Micheletti guitar. It's a Kestrel. The model is called the Kestrel. And we had an Osprey in here a while ago. What a mess. It's the rigid rim construction, 6-string, right-handed, serial number 1702. Anyway, the top is Engelmann spruce, back and sides are Chiavi, and the rims, front and back, all the way around, this bit right here, all the way around, as distinct from other guitars that are just kind of matched angle, right angle-wise. This top and back and sides are all attached together with these rigid rims, and they are made of Peruvian walnut. The neck is a 7-piece. It's 1 3/4 inches at the nut, so it's a nice wide fingerboard for fingerstyle in particular. Fingerboard and bridge are the same as the body wood Kiabi. So we've got Goto 500s, gold with bloodwood buttons. Those are the tuners. And standard hardness, 18% nickel silver frets. Comes with a Cedar Creek custom case. And the abalone on here is quite remarkable. This stuff in here, it's called spider web. And it's little teeny striations of color. Instead of kind of big blocks of color, you've got little tiny striations of color in there. And subtle and lovely on the front. But these these little dots up here that I get to look at are just like glow in the dark. It's like they're battery powered. That's just quite remarkable to look at that while you're playing. I always half jokingly say, when you're buying a guitar, pay attention to this part, because that's the part you're going to be looking at for several years. And sure enough, this is very beautiful with a sound port. The sound port, of course, the idea here is that it lets the performer hear better, but also the science isn't in completely on this. But the idea is that if you've got sound radiating from a guitar, in this case, from anything, with the angles of radiation being different, you will hear the sound at slightly different times, microseconds apart. Those two sounds will generate it in different directions, will reach your ear at a slightly different sound. And your brain will read that as largeness, as capaciousness, as reverberation, actually, depending on the size of the room that you're in. And of course, you sitting right above the thing here, you really do get to hear more of the guitar. It's not precisely the same sound that's going out the front, but it's more guitar sound than you would without it. You can really hear a wah-wah effect doing this sort of thing. Any questions or comments from the assembled? Very good. I'll proceed. Very powerful. And this, strangely enough, is the worst this guitar will ever sound. It's got 0 mileage on it. So even right out of the box, right off the bench, as they say, it sounds like that. And yes, you may be asking how much? $8,500. $8,500 and $25. $85.25. And fantastic, pristine, brand new, fabulous Rick Micheletti guitar. There it is, folks. I just wanted to take you on a little tour of what Bevels can do for you and your playing and your guitar collection. Sometimes they're for comfort. Sometimes they're integral part of the design of the comfort of the thing, combined with other features, as in this Tony Yamamoto. And sometimes they're actually positively structural. And that's one of these Rick Micheletti guitars that's kind of getting featured today. The rims provide the bulk of the support for the top and back. The top and back are very lightly braced. The back has got a lattice-style brace, little X braces across the back instead of straight across ladder bracing. And the top has got all kinds of wild stuff going on in there. It's It's positively architectural. So, thanks for tuning in. Just another Friday noontime webcast from Mighty Fine Guitars. Many thanks to She-Gor, Mistress of the Machines, my own dear Valerie May, for personing the microphone and camera. Do stop by the Mighty Fine Guitars Facebook page. Stop by the website if you can. In fact, next week, let me suggest this now. Take a look at the website. See if there's something at mightyfineguitars.com, and I'll be glad to. Shoot me a little email off the website, or find me on Facebook, Stevie Coyle, or Stevie Coyle Music, or Mighty Fine Guitars. And what else is going on? Oh, the Mighty Quitters, myself and Glenn Houston from Houston Jones, and formerly of the Waybacks as well, are playing at a private concert in Kilroy, right, the guy with the nose peeking over the wall. Gilroy, California. Tomorrow night, Saturday night, they're still... Yeah, let me know when we get... we back? Oh, perhaps we're back. Sorry, we're taking a little cigarette break there. Was telling you, it was probably because I was promoting propaganda. The Mighty Quitters duo, myself and Glenn Houston, are playing at a barn in Gilroy tomorrow night, Saturday night, July 28th. And there still are a few seats available. So find that on Facebook, either at Quitters Duo as a Facebook page, or quittersduo.com. And you can call and get the location and directions and all that. It's always a great time. It's a beautiful barn in Gilroy, and it's all set up for music. It's totally hip. It's like the coolest clubhouse in the world. And then on Sunday morning, over at the Sweetwater in Mill Valley, I'm playing a noontime free show with Marco and the Polos, who are Warren's kids. Warren Hellman, St. Warren of Hardly Strictly Bluegrass. His kids have put together a family band, and I get to play with those folks. So come on by 12:30 for that show. And I think that's enough preposterously self-aggrandizing propaganda for the moment. Thanks for tuning in.
And this will persist.
And yes, thank you. She-Gor reminds me that if you've missed most of the Steve Del Maggioria in particular, it'll persist on the site. Give it a couple of minutes, and however it works, it'll end up populating on the site in just a couple of minutes, and it'll persist there forever, I guess, or until something frightful happens, God forbid. So you can always tune back in and see what all the blather that you may have missed. So once again, Stevie Coyle here at Mighty Fine Guitars. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next Friday. Ta-ta.